tried to make this video a plethora of times and it hasn't worked out yet, but we're running low on time to be able to do it, so we're just going to roll with whatever happens. There is a particular piece of writing advice that I've seen lately that I wanted to counter. So the writing advice in question, it comes in a variety of forms. But in its most basic essence, what I always hear, and this is completely unreasonable from my part, I think, but what I always hear without fail is torture yourself. That'll get writing to happen. And I know logically that for lots of people, the things I'm about to describe are not torture. They're just things. But for a lot of people, these things are painful or uncomfortable or just generally unpleasant. And therein lies the big flaw with this as a piece of advice. Because to my mind, writing should be an enjoyable activity. Do you mind? There's a cat with a tripod, so I'm sorry about that if there's batting happening. To my mind, writing should be an enjoyable activity, even if it's your job, especially if it's your job. So like, with that in mind, how does this advice translate into torture yourself? And also, how can you make writing more enjoyable? Could you get off my tripod, please? Oh my god. We're okay. So, what's the advice, right? That's the real question. The advice itself is things like, and it comes, like I said, it comes in a variety of forms. There is the piece of advice that says, always sit at a desk to do your writing, and bearing in mind, this is my desk and that's my computer. Right next to that big wall of books. Hi, if you haven't been here before, I wrote these. But always sit at a desk. Not a reasonable thing for everybody in every phase of life, because not only is it potentially uncomfortable if you've got some kind of physical ailment, or if you're sitting at a desk all day for, your day job or whatever, but also, like, for a lot of people it's not possible. Like, maybe they don't have a desk. I certainly haven't always had a desk, not even in the case of like publishing, and I've only been publishing since 2021. Like, I haven't always had a desk in the process of publishing these 6 books, right? Like, I have a desk now, but I haven't always had a desk. I have worked from a bed, I have worked from an armchair, I've worked from my sofa, and these are things that aren't completely off the table. So I think that particular one makes writing really inaccessible anyway. Always write at a desk, or even in a specific designated space, doesn't necessarily count, isn't necessarily available, there we go, to a lot of people. But then there's also the thing of give yourself designated writing hours, and it's like, okay, sure, let's think about that for a second. If you're on shift, if you're taking care of another being that needs your support, like if you have a dependent, if you are chronically ill, if you really just struggle to measure time, it's completely inaccessible for all of those things. I, personally, have a writing trigger, a thing that triggers me to do my writing, because I've never found that, like, habits work very well for me. Habits don't work well, timers don't work well. External sources that present as the system by which I live my life doesn't work for me. Triggers, however, work really well. It's like how I keep my toothbrush on the windowsill of my bathroom. You may be thinking, Will, that's a really odd place. But first thing in the morning, one of the things that I do is I look out of the window. Last thing at night, one of the things I do is I look out the window. This is just happenstance. That is probably a habit. It's one of those things. I quite like looking out of the window, because sometimes you get to see the sunset, and sometimes you get to see the moon, and you get to see what the weather's going to look like, and is it going to rain this morning? Is it going to rain this evening? All of these are kind of questions, and so therefore I'll look out the window, and guess where my toothbrush is? On the windowsill. Do I remember to brush my teeth? More often than not. And like, it's one of those things. It's not a habit, it's that I've set myself up for success. So can you set yourself up for success with writing? Like, I have the thing where I'm lucky enough to be writing as a full-time gig, and my wife is doing a normal real people job. And when she's doing her normal real people job, that is my trigger. If she goes out to work or sets up for work, my brain goes, oh, it's work time. And then I start writing. But before that point, when I was doing writing in and around day jobs, the things that I did to get me to start writing was I'd put a specific show on the Food Network or I would have a specific time, not a specific time of day, but a specific context of day that would make me go, aha, I could do writing now. And it doesn't need to be regimented, but something that can trigger your thought process into, oh, let's do some writing, is a really useful resource. And it's the same concept of a thing as scheduling without the rigidity required for scheduling. I mean, if you love scheduling, go off. I'm not saying don't schedule your life. I'm not saying don't make a regimented writing time. I'm saying if that doesn't work for you, as it doesn't for me, and if that stresses you out, as it does for me, here are some other options. Another one that gets bandied around a lot is wear like business-like clothes, wear like work clothes of some variety. And whether that is that you just give yourself a writing uniform, that's the softest version of that piece of advice. Cat on a tripod again, I'm so sorry. Whether that is give yourself a writing uniform, you always wear these specific joggers or this specific outfit, even if it's a comfy thing. That's the softest version of this advice. The slightly harsher version of this advice is that you should be wearing like a suit, as it were, or like, proper business attire to do writing. And for me personally, that's incredibly uncomfortable. And for me personally, as someone who does not build habits, doing laundry, really difficult. So I have lots of very similar pieces of clothing and I wear my pajamas to write. So the reason I wear my pajamas to write is because I have more pajamas than anyone could possibly. No, I have plenty of pajamas. I wear random t-shirts and a pair of pajama pants because it's really comfy and I don't get distracted by the feeling of wearing clothes. And I'm not saying, again, that everybody gets distracted by the feeling of clothes or that wearing like a work uniform of whatever variety, from business attire to comfy attire that you specifically wear for writing, is a bad idea. If the context of clothing is something that helps you figure out and get into the right mindset for writing, then obviously utilize that. But if you, like me, just wear your pajamas, you pull on your pajamas when you get out of bed, I don't know, maybe you wear pajamas to bed, who knows, I don't know. Whether you're relaxing around the house, cleaning and doing errands, or, doing your writing, then as long as you can do that, that's what matters. It's not that you have to follow this piece of advice because it's being given by someone that you respect and admire within the writing community about what they have learned about themselves. What matters is this going to affect you? Do you find yourself struggling and do you think you would benefit from it? And obviously you might not necessarily know that unless you try it, but if the sound of it is truly horrific, it's probably not going to help. And the thing is a lot of this advice gets presented as like a solution to neurodivergent writers struggling with executive function. And it's like, the thing is none of these are going to solve your executive function necessarily. I don't want to say you already know how to solve your executive function, because you might well not know how to solve your executive function. I'm not saying you absolutely have all of the solutions already in your life, but think back to a time where you were able to do something you kind of didn't want to do. Like a great example that I can give is like homework. Nobody wants to do homework. But if you have problems with executive function, you've probably struggled a lot with homework over the years. What was, genuine question that you've got to answer for yourself, what was the best way you ever figured out how to do homework? For me, it was sitting on the sofa in front of the TV with something I didn't really want to watch on the TV, so that I had noise and movement. Like what I like to call it is visual and audio static. It's a real thing. People are moving and talking and whatever. But to my mind, it's static. I'm not focusing on it. I'm focusing on this other thing. It's a great part of like, a lot of people like to work in like cafes and that. And the reason that people like to work in cafes is exactly the same thing. It's visual and audio static. It's stuff that your brain is primed not to notice, but you feel like you're in a social environment. And I have like engineered that for myself by by putting on the TV as a kid. So now I can utilize that knowledge about myself to be able to decide that this system of a noise, something to not look at, is better than, for example, sitting against a blank wall, although my desk does face a blank wall. So you can tell by the light, this is a window and this is a wall. But like in the grand scheme of things, I also have a dual monitor set up so that I can put something on a second monitor. Or the fact that I live in a house with pets. I live on a main road, so it's always kind of noisy here. I'll put on music, I'll put on streaming, whatever. The point is that I know from my lived experience that visual and audio static are really, really helpful for me in trying to maintain my focus and maintain my attention. It's also a really great halting point for me, because if I've done something like put on a series or put on a YouTube video and it comes to an end for any reason, that is an abrupt halt. That is a very sudden stop, and I know that about myself, and then it's very difficult to get going again. Or like if I'm listening to a playlist but it's not long enough, I can end up listening to the same song over and over again until it filters through from audio static into focal point, and I get very frustrated because my brain's been listening to it for the last 3 hours, but my central focus has not been listening to it. So I'm now annoyed at it because my brain's like overstimulated by this one particular song, and the front part of my brain's going, why are we so angry? Oh my gosh. And we have to turn off. The solutions to these problems, other than obviously what I've just said as counter advice to the advice, the thing that is stopping a lot of people is procrastination. And I've said before that the solution to procrastination is the same as solution to writer's block. What is the actual problem? Is it perfectionism? Is it that you're bored? Is it just that you have executive function issues? And one of the biggest like counters to all of that, to be honest, is if you make it fun and exciting and rewarding to write, you are more likely to be able to do it. I know that executive function doesn't always care if it's fun or exciting or rewarding. But the more fun and exciting and rewarding you can make it, the easier a time you will have getting started, maintaining attention, especially if you have a system in place that allows you to have a physical reward of some kind. It doesn't have to be like a physical reward, some kind of external reward of some kind at regular intervals, right? Because then, regardless of whether it's a painstaking process and you're really having to work hard to get through every piece of it, or if you are having a great time and you've blasted through and, oh no, you've been working for the last 8 hours and you haven't even gone to the bathroom, you can have that external reward either way. So like for me, it's the sticker chart thing. I get a sticker every 200 words, and some days, every 200 words is a slog and a struggle and the absolute worst thing ever, right? Some days that is the case. It's the worst and I hate every minute of it, despite the fact that by and large, I love writing and I love editing and I love the whole process. Some days it's a real slog, but at the end of every 200 words, I get to give myself one of them little glittery stickers. And that matters and it makes a difference and it gives me that external reward. And similarly, when I get to the end of a whoopsie, I've been working all day and I haven't looked up once. And I can put in I get that immediate wash. This happens to a lot of people who have those kind of focus patterns. You get the immediate wash of tired and frustration and all of the bad things, that have been in the buffer zone. Suddenly, wonk, now you're tired and you're hungry and you have to pee and you're thirsty as well. And oh my God, why did you do this? You still get to have the stickers. I still get to do the thing where I get the stickers. So I still actually feel good after the fact. I'm not saying stickers are the solution for everyone. I'm not saying that stickers are like a magic cure-all for executive dysfunction. I do not have a chore chart because they don't work for everything. And a big part of the reason I'm using the stickers at all is because I wanted to do word count maths. But I also reward myself in other ways. I get out built up energy in other ways to be able to go back to writing. I find ways to make procrastination writing adjacent. I've got a whole YouTube video about that as well. It's called number of ways to not write a book on purpose. But yeah, genuinely, it's a thing. Being able to have those moments is really valuable, because sometimes it's as simple as getting a snack or a drink that you like. Sometimes it's having a break when you're feeling frustrated and doing some movement exercises, whatever that happens to look like for you, whether it's a dance break, whether it's a chair dance break, whether it's doing Tai Chi or yoga or your carpal tunnel exercises. Whatever it happens to look like, utilizing those times to get your body moving, and then you'll feel better probably in yourself, because exercise releases endorphins make you happy, and suddenly you're happy and you're sitting down to write. It is like I don't want to call it like a biohack because it's such a bullshit term, but it is kind of like a biohack. If you make yourself happy and then you sit down to write, next thing you know, the next time you're happy, you're gonna want to sit down to write. The next time you're feeling good and relaxed after a jog, I don't know, whatever body movement moment you're having, you'll want to get down to writing. It's like, for a while when I was younger, I used to try and do the washing up every single morning. And the thing that I did after the washing up was I did my writing, right? So it's the washing up first thing every morning. Don't be a jerk about the fact that I wasn't doing it the night before, because this was a very complicated time for my life. But basically my wife was working in archaeology, so she was driving several hours every day to get to and from an archaeological site. So she would start really early, I would wake up later, and then we would have quite late nights together by the time she gets home. So we'd have to do like have dinner, spend time together, go to bed, and then she'd be up early again the next day. And it's like, you don't want to waste that time doing the fucking washing up, man. You just don't want to. So I would do it in the morning, first thing in the morning, doing the washing up. And I would take that time in the morning, instead of being mindful, I'd put on one of my book playlists. I'd listen to the songs that I felt worked with that particular book story concept, and I would then think about it while I did the washing up. And then once I was done with that, I had a nice pile of clean dishes, I'd go and I'd write my stories because I'd set up the system for myself that in the morning I did a physical thing that made me feel accomplished. I had it all set up so that it was very easy to transition from just getting up into doing the washing up, which is not so much of a system anymore, sad face. But my wife doesn't work in on the archaeology anymore, so she's not driving hours and hours to site anymore, which is really great. And then I would listen to my book music and I would go and do my writing. And that is how you build, if not a habit, then a system. And I'm not saying this is the solution for everyone, because I never try and say that, because no one piece of advice can work for everyone. There are people out there who apologize too much, and there are people out there who apologize too little. And you can't tell everybody out there, everybody apologizes too much, stop apologizing so much, because for some people, they need to apologize more. Like, it's the same basic concept for literally everything. Everything in life is a spectrum of balances and checks and personalization, and there is no real way to provide that when you're giving advice, except to try and be really specific about who the advice is for. And I think that's where a lot of these pieces of advice fall down, is they say things like for neurodivergent authors, but as a neurodivergent author, they're not for me. They don't work for me. I don't like them, and I just don't want other people to think that these are the barriers to entry to writing for fun or profit. You know, like, I don't want people to think that they have to be able to sit at a desk in business attire for 2 hours militantly every weekday night after work. Because that's not necessarily a reasonable thing to ask of everyone. When I was working full time, out of the house, doing a job, I didn't finish at the same time every single day. Even in my like equivalent 9-to-5er, I worked from 8:30 in the morning and an hour's bus ride, 8:30 in the morning till either 4:30 or 5:45. And it changed depending on what day of the week it was. So how does a 2-hour writing stint fit into that system? It doesn't. It doesn't fit in. On top of that, that was also when my wife was working shifts. So any time we had together was precious. And that was something that we had to kind of fight for. I wasn't going to take a 2-hour militant sitting in my business attire that I've just got home from work and changed out of to be militant about writing while I was trying to fight for any time with my wife. Not going to do that. And I don't think it's reasonable to expect that of yourself. I mean, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying that only you can make that choice. And I don't think it's reasonable for some other person, especially if they're a best-selling author, to be there like, this is the only way. It's like there are people out there who give world-building advice with the same basic concept. And they're like, everybody should know, insert what is really quite a meaningless thing here, right? Like everybody should know where blue dye comes from in their universe. And it's like, but is it relevant to the story? Does anyone even wear blue? Like, are we just interpreting like historical expectations and, you know, the earth that we live on into this fantasy realm? And these are the kinds of questions that I think it's really important to ask yourself and other authors. If somebody is giving a piece of advice that sounds like that, everybody should know something, everybody should do something, it's probably not everybody. And the thing is, when you're neurodivergent, it's very easy to take that very literally, right? If somebody tells you that, especially somebody that you admire or who's in a position that you want to achieve, says, this is the solution, this is the way, follow this road to the end and you will get there, and you never wanted to drive a car, or you don't know how to drive a car, and actually you were hoping there was going to be a forest to hike through to get there instead, you don't need to follow the car advice. You need to find someone else who is also in that position but wants to meander through the forest with you. Does that make sense? Anyway, if you're looking for forest meandering writers, no. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I hope that was helpful. I really do hope that was helpful. If you want to read any of my books, the links to find them all are in the description box below, right next to the like and subscribe buttons if you feel like sticking around. I share free short stories every single week over on nopoodles.wordpress.com, except that it's 1 Pro right now, so I'm sharing short stories every single day, more or less. And as far as exciting announcements go, I am also going to MCM Comic Con in London this May. I will be there in Writer's Block at table WB7, which is Writer's Block 7. And if you have tickets, I hope you will come and see me. And if you have found this after the fact, hello, it was really nice to see you there. And as always, this channel is not monetized. I don't make any money from YouTube. So if you would like to support me financially, there is always a link to my Ko-fi account in the description box below as well. I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Bye.